Welcome to Small Arm Solutions. One of my first videos was on the Sig MPX. That was one of my earliest videos before I really had a chance to figure out how I wanted to go about doing my YouTube channel. And what I really have come down to is I want to give my viewers an extreme technical look at the firearms rather than all the tactical using and all that kind of stuff. My actual area of expertise is mechanics and being able to tell you how these weapons function rather than the different scenarios for self-defense. So I wanted to give you guys a new look at the MPX, which will be much more detailed, and we can talk a lot more about the different applications of the new Sig MPX series. This particular model is the SBR version, or short barrel rifle version, of the MPX. It has a telescopic stock, and it has a 8.5-inch barrel. Also is offered as a pistol, which basically is this exact same model with the stock removed, which you can get around having to get an SBR or a Form 1 or register as a Class 3 weapon. You also have a carbine version, which would be another civilian legal with 16-inch barrel. This also comes in both fully automatic and semi-automatic only. I had the opportunity about 2 years ago to meet the two gentlemen who actually designed this. One gentleman's name was Robert Hurt, who was a former Heckler & Koch and Sig guy. He's now at Caracal. Another one was Chris Royce, who was a project leader on this as well. He's also now over at Caracal. Both of those guys were the head guys on the Sig 516, the MPX, and the MCX programs. We'll take a look at this from back to front, and we can talk about some of the changes that there are. There is a Generation 1 and a Generation 2. Well, let's start with just the different features on it right now. We have the Sig pistol grip. We do have an ambidextrous safety. We do have an ambidextrous bolt catch as well. As you can see, it's very easy to actuate. Standard magazine catch. We have an ejection port dust cover, similar to that of the M16. I actually had added one of the short mow grips on here. On the left side, we can see the Ambidextrous Selector, which is the normal position for the selector, ambidextrous magazine release, and a slightly modified bolt catch. You can see it's been elongated on the bottom here to make it more easy to engage in the open position. This here is an insert which has it's used for the actual cam pen itself from damaging the inside of the receiver. This is one of the telltale signs of whether you have a Gen 1 or a Gen 2. If you had a Gen 1, the end of this piece right here would be flush right here. This has been moved over. The other difference between the Generation 1 and Generation 2 is, if you can see, we have the key mod handguards here. This is also the Generation 2. The Generation 2 enables you to be able to fire 3 different calibers: 9mm, 37 SIG, and 40 S&W with the same receiver. Magazines also. This is a Gen 2 magazine. This magazine will accept all 3 cartridges as well. You don't have to get a separate magazine. That's really the definition between the Generation and the 1 and Generation 2. The carbine comes with folding backup sights, which are excellent. They're very quick to use. You got your 2 apertures. Also, we have an ambidextrous charging handle, another really excellent feature. This gun, if you are familiar with the M16 or M4, you'll be right there comfortable with it. But now we're going to take a look at the inside and see what really makes this thing different from the rest of them. The first things we're going to look at is inside the receiver itself. This has been an issue that has been ongoing with the Colt 9mm submachine guns for many, many years. Due to the higher cycle rate of the blowback 9mm, when the hammer is drawn backwards, it's drawn back very violently. It would go all the way back, and it would actually hit the back end of the disconnector. So much as though that it would actually crack and break the disconnectors. It did become a problem, especially with the fully automatic guns. Sig went ahead and they corrected that problem. If you notice, first of all, you have this elongated area here, and you have a shelf that's built in right over the back of the disconnector. So when the hammer comes back, it smacks that shelf and not the disconnector, preventing the disconnector from breaking. That was a major improvement for as far as durability. The other issue that was caused by that violent recoil too was the hammer pins would break as well. But this is one problem that Sig was able to correct. This will take other trigger assemblies. However, to make it work properly, I definitely would recommend that you stick with the trigger groups that was put into it. It was designed and improved over the standard ones, which have particular operating principles of the 9mm are different from the 5.56. This is one of the major issues that was taken care of. So again, I would recommend that you leave this trigger assembly in. That shelf makes a very big difference with the 9mm. Also, you have the bumper right here is when the bolt carrier comes back. That's what stops it in the rear there. The actual stock assembly itself is held on by a bolt, and there's actually a Mill Standard 1913 section on the back of this receiver, which enables you to remove and install the stock assemblies. The stock assemblies for this one are offered, or several. In fact, the stocks are identical and interchangeable with the MCX rifle. You have the telescopic stock, you have a side-folding stock, you have a side-folding collapsible stock. You also have an adapter that'll take a AR-15 type receiver extension, so you can use all different stock assemblies that are available for that. So that's the lower receiver itself. Now we're going to look at the actual operating mechanism. The bolt carrier group is all one piece. Now this is what's very unique about the Sig MPX. The Sig MPX is not a direct blowback gun as the standard Colt is. It actually is a locked breech, as we can see right here. We have basically 4 lugs that when it locks into a receiver extension, what this does, first of all, this is a safety. It's a safety enhancement. By having a locked breech, you're less likely to have an issue with firing out a battery. That is a real benefit, and also for using higher pressure ammunition. It keeps the bolt locked that much longer. You can see there is a cam pin right there. And we also have dual recoil springs. So the recoil spring is all one piece from here, which prevents you from having to have a receiver extension with a recoil spring in it. Now, the lower handguard is held on by a little pin right here. That all we got to do is slide that forward, and we slide the handguard right off. Again, we're looking at an 8.5-inch barrel. This barrel is very easily removed by unbolting these 2 screws, and the barrel can be physically removed. This is actually a short stroke tappet piston. Again, it's not it's not blowback such as the standard Colt. It's actually a lock breech mechanism utilizing a gas system. So you can actually see right here where the impact area where the piston actually strikes to drive the bolt carrier rearward. The extractor is physically fixed into the receiver, unlike the Colt type pattern rifle where you have an extractor that's fixed to the receiver itself, the lower receiver. This is fixed into the upper receiver. The fixed extractor is, it's obviously more reliable than any kind of a spring-loaded plunger, so it's definitely a reliability enhancement over that. Now comes the really big question. It's multi-caliber. Why can't I get the barrels? I can tell you from working with Sig very closely on several projects, Sig has not released the 327 or the 40 caliber yet. There's a couple reasons for that. One Sig rep told me that there's so much demand strictly for the 9mm right now that they're more concentrated on that right now, and also just because of the political climate, they're putting out guns as fast as they possibly can. That eliminates a lot of the ability to do a lot of the R&D that one would normally have. I am sure at some point they're going to have those barrel caliber swaps as well as different barrels. Right now, I'm waiting for one of the 4.5. This model MPX which is the shorter barrel. I wanted to get that for this too. I actually purchased this rifle because I was actually so fond of it, and it's waiting its tax stamp right now. So I'm looking to get one of the shorter barrels as well as the shorter handguards. But it's probably going to be a while. In fact, it's just recently that Sig was able to ship out different stock variations. This is a very reliable and robust system. For its use, I will say that here in the United States, it's going to be a limited application here for law enforcement military. In the United States, you'll find very few police departments that still use 9mm SMGs. However, the international market, I think the international market is going to eat this up. In regions such as the Middle East, South America, Central America, and even some in Asia, the submachine gun is still king. It's still one of the preferred weapons in 9mm. So there's definitely going to be an international market for it. This really was a well thought out system. It definitely is the companion on with the MCX and MCX. They have many parts which are interchangeable on a larger scale. The adaptability of this is incredible. Test firing this rifle before, prior to doing this video here, we put quite a few different types of ammunition through it, and we had no issues with reliability at all, whether it was with hollow points or whether it was with full metal jacket round nose. I have not yet put the sound suppressor on it, but I will as soon as that tech stamp comes back. But there's a lot of really good features on this rifle. It's obvious when they designed it, they took a look at the Colt series and said, how can we improve on that? And they surely did. Another issue that they actually cured to was the issue of the over travel on the bolt carrier, or the bolt carrier itself. What that was Colt basically took the standard M16 and they want all the parts to stay the same. But the difference is between the bolt carriers is the bolt carrier on the 9mm SMG is the same length as the bolt carrier on the M16. Well, there's an extra ½ inch in there of the bolt. So when the bolt unlocks, the bolt extends at least a ½ inch. As it comes rearward, it extracts and ejects the cartridge case, and when it comes forward, it has about a ½ inch of acceleration before it smacks into the bolt catch to halt the bolt to the rear. Well, the actual travel on this is proper, so when it fires its last shot, the bolt, and when it starts its forward movement, is just a little hair from hitting the bolt carrier, so it stopped before it can have a chance to accelerate. Well, a couple of problems happen when you have all that time to accelerate in the Colt. Well, first of all, you're giving it time to accelerate to smack into that piece of steel and the aluminum that it's into, which can cause bolt catches to break, or eventually you can damage the receivers. The second thing that it does is when it goes back so far, when the bolt's all the way to the rear on its opening stroke, you actually have part of the trigger compartment that's visible in there. Well, it's also big enough for a spent cartridge case to fall into and jam up the trigger mechanism. I've actually had this happen to me in some demonstrations that I've done overseas. So Colt currently fixed that by inserting an insert in the back of the receiver extension to halt that, so it can't go back that far. This gun, as it was designed, already had that problem taken care of as well. The next thing I want to take a look at is the actual magazine itself. This was actually designed by Sig engineers along with Lancer engineers. This is a Lancer produced. This is a translucent polymer magazine where you can actually see the rounds as they sit in the magazine. There's two of them offered. One is in 30 round capacity, the other is a 20 round capacity. We're going to take the MPX back to the range and we'll see what you can do. We're going to do some test firing with the Sig MPX. This is probably the latest in submachine gun technology. This particular one's semi-automatic only, but it is the SBR version. This is actually the Gen 2. The Gen 2, you can tell by the fact that it's got a key mod a rail system on it, and also by the way the protective steel plate on the cam area is. The gun is supposedly set up for 9mm, 357 SIG, and 40 S&W. The other calibers, and 357 SIG and 40, have not become available yet, but when they do, this gun's already set up for it. Ambidextrous Selector, ambidextrous bolt catch, ambidextrous magazine catch, and an ambidextrous charging handle. This was designed very well. If you notice here, there's actually steel pins on both sides. What that does is it prevents the steel on the charging handle latch from wearing out in the aluminum and causing the charging handle to come loose over time. So that was actually an excellent enhancement. The magazines hold 30 rounds. There's also a Gen 1 and a Gen 2 magazine. I do believe the difference between the Gen 1 and Gen 2 magazines is the ability to take both, or all three of the calibers, 40, 9mm, and 357 SIG. Supposedly it's the same magazine. Again, not having the ability to test one yet. The magazines were made by Lancer, which has got a very good reputation for doing translucent magazines. So we're going to give it a try. This ammunition was provided by Black Hills. Again, Jeff Hoffman has been a great supporter of my work. Ambidextrous bolt catch. Hear those bullets smack into the target. Unfortunately, the MPX only comes with one magazine. I will say, anybody who's used to the Colt platform, 9mm magazines or the Uzi magazines that are very difficult to load, especially once you get towards the end, these are as simple as can be. Not much stress at all on your thumb or your fingers. My overall impressions of the Sig MPX are excellent. I think this is probably one of the finest submachine guns in the market. I think it's probably one of the most durable, most reliable. The testing that Sig has done on this thing in adverse conditions is incredible as well. The fact that it has the same fit and feel as an M16 or an M4 in the 9mm platform, plus the enhancements, is positive. Sig is answering the call not only law enforcement, military, but commercial. And I think commercial sales are probably going very well for them. And again, I test a lot of firearms in my work, and there's not all that many that I really get impressed with and I keep. This is one of them I decided that I was going to buy. Now you just got to wait for that tax stamp to come through. Thank you. Hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, please select like and please subscribe. Thank you.